Good morning. We're going to talk about tangent today, which we kind of alluded to yesterday. So here we go. So tangent is a relationship, a ratio, that relates the opposite and adjacent sides of a right triangle. And as we talked about yesterday, that depends on which angle we're looking at. And just look up here for a second. T for tangent, opposite over adjacent, TOA. So the end of SOHCAHTOA. So if you look at a right triangle, and you choose one of the angles to kind of be your focus angle. So there's the angle we're looking at. The side opposite, you look across the triangle. This is the opposite side. To find the adjacent side, you look right next to it. Now, some people get confused between like adjacent and hypotenuse, but the hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse, so you never use it for that. So it's one of the other legs, opposite and adjacent. So the equation, tangent theta or x or whatever, equals the length of the opposite side over the length of the adjacent side. Now, something to be super duper aware of is the fact that this is a number. Like it's an actual number. I'll show you with my calculator real quick. If I type in tan 25, it gives me a number. So it's not like you can break this apart. It stays together. All right, so let's show you how to use it a little bit. You will need a calculator, either a graphing calculator or this kind is fine too. Your phone calculator should work, and Desmos, of course. But like we said yesterday, please make sure your calculator is in degree mode. If it's not in degree mode, you're not going to get the right answers. All right, so example number 1. I'm just going to draw a random right triangle. Okay, so here's a right triangle, and you can see that we have an angle to focus on right here. Here's our angle. It has a value in it, and we have the opposite side and we have the adjacent side. So we will use the tangent ratio. So we're going to do tangent. Now that theta up here stands for an angle. So tangent 35 equals opposite x over adjacent 13. Okay. And now in order to solve this, you simply treat it like any other equation. So x is here. We want to get rid of the 13 on the bottom to get the x alone. So since we were dividing by 13, we're going to do the opposite and multiply both sides by 13. So we have 13 times tangent 35 equals x. Now, in oldenish days, we would look at a thing called a trig table. But let me show you kind of as a side note what we are doing right here. If I type in tangent 35, it gives me a decimal. So I could theoretically be doing 13 times 0.7002 equals x. So like I said, this tan 35 represents an actual number. But I like to use the actual tangent button because this rounds the number and I don't want to round it as simply. So I'm going to type in 13, tangent 35, literally what I wrote on my paper. Press enter and it tells us that x is 9.10. So the length of this side is 9.1. Now, obviously, we could use the Pythagorean theorem at this point if we wanted to find the hypotenuse, because now we know two sides and we're looking for the third. But when we're relating sides and angles, we're using trig. All right, let's do another one. All right, so here's another example. So we have our angle that we're focused on, and we're going to look for the sides that we have. We have the opposite side, and we have the adjacent side, so we will use tangent. The formula, tangent of the angle, 14, equals opposite, 12, over adjacent, x. This one takes a little bit more time to solve, but not bad. So we have our x in the denominator, so we're going to need to get it out of the denominator. We're going to multiply both sides by x. So we have x times tangent 14 equals 12. And we want the x alone, so we're going to divide by tan 14. So x equals 12 over tan 14. And then we just type that into our calculator. 12 divided by tangent of 14, 48.1. So why did I put squiggles? And I really should have had squiggles up here. Because this is a rounded number, it's not exact. But the length of this side is 48.1. So these are the two main basic ways that you're going to use the tangent ratio, but there's two more. All right. So this time, we actually know two of the sides. But instead of looking for the third side like we do with the Pythagorean theorem, we're going to be looking for the degree of this angle. How big is this angle? So we're going to use the same formula though. Tangent, but now our angle is x, equals opposite over adjacent. Now this one's super cool. We kind of talked about it yesterday a little bit. You can't just divide by tangent, because remember, tangent and whatever that number is an actual number by itself. So we use the inverse tangent, like that. And we do that for the ratio of opposite over adjacent. And that's kind of how you can break them apart. Side note, the inverse of a trig function gives the angle measure. Okay? And in order to actually get an answer for that, you press on this calculator second tan, or whatever you need to do to get the inverse tangent, and then 13 divided by 18. So 35.8 degrees is x. So this angle is 35.8 degrees. So you can see that using tangent or any other trig functions, as you'll learn, just ties together sides and angles of a right triangle. All right, one more multi-step problem. I probably should have had these drawn before I started the video, but whatever. Okay, I'm going to make these little marks for an isosceles triangle. All right, so we need to find x and y, and to do that, we're actually looking at two different triangles. We're going to look at this triangle here, and I'll draw it over here, separate. And we're looking at the other triangle too. we need to decide what do we need to find first? Which one has enough information to figure something out? All right, well, what we do know right now, because this is isosceles, is that the base was split. So both of these pieces are 125. We know for the purple one that this one's 70, and the height of it is y. For this one, at this point, we actually only know one piece. And so we're going to need to figure out y before we figure out x, because this right here is y also. They share that side. All right, so let's start with the purple one. We got to identify our angle that we're basing everything off of, which is right here. We have our side opposite and our adjacent. So we're going to set up our trig ratio. Tangent of a 70-degree angle equals opposite over adjacent. All right, we solved that by multiplying both sides by the denominator. So 125 tangent 70 equals y. And we can just type that in, 125 tangent 70. 343.4. This is a very tall triangle. Okay, so now that we know that the height is 343.4, we know that this side here is 343.4. Now we have enough information to figure out x. So tangent of x equals opposite 125 over adjacent 343.4. In order to figure out what the angle is, we need to use the inverse tangent. Oops. And then inverse tangent in the calculator. For mine, second tangent, 125 divided by 343.4. So x equals approximately 20. All right, so that should be enough to get you started. And if you have any questions, let me know. Bye.